So this is the time of year where we are going to start preparing for winter. Now, I don't want you to think that this video is about hive winterization. It's not. We are still a long ways off for that. But there are things that we can do to make that process easier as the season edges toward that time. And the two things I want to talk about are hive consolidation and combining hives. I'm going to mention mite treatment only because these two topics tie into that. This video is not about mite treatments. That video will be next, but these two steps that I'm talking about now kind of prepares for that. So let's first talk about hive consolidation. Let's say a little bit later in the season, after swarm season has pretty much waned and really slowed down, and the buildup is done, and you have a nuke that maybe you're building, you built it into a single, and then you got to a point where you're like, it's kind of like marginal. Should I put another 10 frame box on top? And you're like, let's see what they do. And you throw that 10 frame box on top. And sure enough, it's not drawing out as fast as you'd like it, and you're afraid it may not build up in time to be a strong double by winter. This would be a good time to remedy that. And you would consolidate that hive down to a single. The tricky part with that is you have to take a 20 frame hive and make it into a 10 frame hive. So the first thing you do in that situation is find any undrawn frames that they didn't even start drawing, or some that they started drawing but didn't finish, and take those out. You basically have to eliminate 10 frames somewhere. If you do that and you still, have more frames to eliminate, then you would go after some fully drawn frames that there's not a lot of action going on in those frames. Maybe there's a little bit of nectar or some pollen, not a whole lot of population and no brood. You would take those, shake whatever straggler bees are back into the hive, take those frames out. Hopefully you now have 10 frames left. If you don't, the last thing you can do is check to see how many frames of capped honey or nectar that they have. And if you feel that they have enough to spare, then you can take out a frame of nectar or capped honey and donate it to a hive that maybe could use that resource. So you finally get that 20 frame double deep down to 10 frames. And now it's a good, strong single. That's it. You've consolidated a hive. I would, however, put a medium super on top of that, just as insurance. You never know if there's going to be a good fall flow or not. You don't know if that queen may really ramp up brood rearing at some point. And if she does, you want her to be able to go up into that super and use that as a brood nest to avoid swarming. Just because the main swarm season's passed doesn't mean a swarm can't happen. They do happen later in the season as well. There's a secondary swarm season. You don't want your bees swarming anytime after July. It's too much work to get that hive built back up if you even can. Put a super on top of that very strong single. No queen excluder. I don't run queen excluders anyway for that reason, even during the main season. If she's going up to that super to lay, there's probably a reason for it. The next thing I like to do is pay attention to my 5-frame nukes. I typically don't overwinter nukes. This time of year, if I have any 5-frame nukes in my yard and I know I'm not going to overwinter them, I'm just going to combine them because I know that 5-frame nuke isn't going to build up in time for winter. So just combine them and make it into a nice, strong single. So you do your newspaper combine on your 2 nukes. You come back a few days later. That's how long it takes to successfully combine via newspaper combine. And you now transfer those 2 5-frame boxes into a single 10-frame deep. We're not talking about anything different than running single deeps. It's perfectly acceptable to do that. Newer beekeepers, I think, are afraid to combine hives. I know I was when I was newer because we get so hung up on numbers. We kind of associate how many hives we have with our success. And sure enough, you talk about your friends about beekeeping, and the first thing they ask, well, how many hives do you have? So it's like in our heads, it's like we almost feel like we don't want to reduce those numbers. But remember, it's not a hive loss if you do it by design. If it's your choice, it's not a loss. You're combining resources and you're increasing your chance of winter survival. So advantages to combining: you're creating good, strong, healthy hives going into winter. They have a much better chance of survival in that condition. Cut out the dead weight, cut your losses. The second advantage, and this is a huge advantage in my opinion, it frees up resources for the following year. You can buy pretty much any resource that you need for beekeeping. There's only one resource you cannot buy. You can buy sugar and make simple syrup. You could feed your bees. You could buy pollen. You could buy all your woodenware, your frames, your undrawn, foundations. You could even buy bees and queens. You cannot buy drawn comb. And that is the most valuable resource in beekeeping. You couldn't make me any offer to get me to sell you drawn comb. By combining your hives, you are now freeing up all of that drawn comb to make up, come springtime, those little losses that you were afraid to create. You will not only make up those losses, you will make them up 2- and 3-fold. I don't know if at this point you've been through a swarm season or not. Maybe this is just your first year. It's pretty impressive how fast they start building during that spring buildup, especially if you have good, healthy hives coming out of winter and they just want to bust at the seams. You got to start splitting. You're increasing your numbers. So it's almost like 2, 3, 4 steps forward, and then come late summer and fall, 1 step back. And you will grow your numbers regardless of how much you combine your hives. I assure you that. Another advantage of combining is you're reducing the amount of your resources that you need to get hives through winter. Would you rather spend time and money and effort on fewer really strong hives, knowing that they're going to make it through winter, or you want to just kind of roll the dice on these mediocre hives and maybe they'll make it through winter, but you've already spent money on sugar. You've treated them individually before you combined. It's kind of like just combining all your resources and limiting your expense, whether it be labor or money, to managing those hives. I would much rather manage fewer hives from Thanksgiving on. I know that those hives are going to explode come springtime if I do everything I'm supposed to do. So those are your advantages. If you're getting any value from this video, please remember to like and subscribe and turn on notifications. I'd like you to get alerts when I put videos out. And, if I've helped you with this video, I would hope to be able to help you, in the future. Also, if you go out to your yards and you decide to start doing what I'm suggesting here and you run into a little trouble or you get a little anxious, you have some questions, close up your hive. Just close it up, walk away. It's always better to do nothing than to act in haste. Then I want you to either leave me a comment or go to my main webpage, lakeviewapiary.com, and leave me a message. I will get back to you relatively quick, and I'll reach back out to you. I want to help you. Daniel Fago, he reached out to me the other day, and he was in a panic, man. He's like, I got to buy a nuke. My hive is queenless. He left me his number. I called him, and I said, before we go spending money on nukes here, let's talk to me. What do you got? Let's go over your timeline. So it turns out his bee math was a little off, and there wouldn't have been a queen ready to lay yet. She's still in the queen mating process, we'll call it. He was about a week early. So I literally talked him off the ledge, and I made him feel just a whole lot better about the situation. When I started out beekeeping, I was overwhelmed. I had a hard time finding people and knowing who to listen to. Some older gentleman from Long Island, he didn't have to do this. He took me under his wing via email, and for like 2 years, this guy coached me. And it was those 2 years that really just brought everything together for me. So I want to pay that forward. I've been paying it forward ever since. I want to continue paying it forward. So please give me the opportunity to do for you what that gentleman did for me. Lakeview Lakeview Apiary on Facebook. You can reach out to me in the comments here. Thanks for watching this video, and I will see you all next time.